Disclaimer: this video does not promote or condone hostile relationships between different countries. This video only attempts to explain the backgrounds of different country rivalries and hostilities, and why they are like that. I don't even want to use the word hate, as it implies strong emotions. Also, this does not mean that everything is negative, but this video is about countries that generally have hostile relationships with each other. But honestly, international relations are a mixed bag. There will always be good sides and bad sides, and in this video, we'll discuss the bad sides. Let's jump in right away. One of the most famous rivalries in the world is the rivalry between India and Pakistan. In reality, the relationships are complex, but they're generally hostile to each other. Both countries are still trying to outclass each other, especially in terms of military. Both countries are nuclear armed, by the way. As always, it's the fault of the British, as Britain once colonized what is now India and Pakistan. Thanks to the totally sophisticated border crafting of the India-Pakistan border by the British, both countries are involved in a dispute for Jammu and Kashmir. That disputed area has been the main fighting ground where India and Pakistan engage in many armed conflicts. What really separates India from Pakistan is the religious demographic, since Pakistan is a predominantly Muslim, while India is a lot more diverse, but with a Hindu majority. Despite all of this, India and Pakistan share a very long history and have cultural and ethnic links. Still, it's a rivalry that could be very dangerous for the world. This one needs no introduction. In fact, I have already made a video explaining their hostile relationship, which is kind of outdated already. As of March 2022, both countries are in a state of war and their militaries are engaged in heavy fighting. To simplify the video I mentioned, it all comes down to Russia's geopolitical goals and Ukraine's divided population, which led to an armed conflict starting in 2014. As of March 2022, these two countries have the most hostile relationship, where human lives are at stake, Ukrainians are devastated, and Russia itself is also affected by the conflict. These two countries were also engaged in an armed conflict, with a major war fought last 2020 that ended in Azerbaijani victory. Basically, their hostile relationship is down to the Nagorno-Karabakh dispute. The Armenians living there stress that they are their own, with the Republic of Artsakh, where Azerbaijan claims it's theirs. This dispute, however, does not trace back to the meticulous British borders, but to the Soviets. What's interesting with this conflict is that even your average Armenian and Azerbaijani have generally negative thoughts on each other. Another famous rivalry. This one is bound by ideological and political grounds. To grossly oversimplify, the North is ruled by a pretty interesting man under a communist Juche regime, while the South is capitalist and democratic, where you can find K-pop. Blame the Cold War and why this occurred, as the Soviet Union controlled the North, while the United States controlled the South. The ensuing Korean War was a stalemate, and both countries continue to be hostile. Both countries still claim that the Korean peninsula is theirs, but well, Korea was once a single country. This stalemate is also dangerous since North Korea has nukes. After all, they're still Koreans. You probably came for this section, and yes, Turkey and Greece may not have the best relationship. Right now, though, Turkey and Greece do cooperate to some extent, and quite a number of Greeks and Turks view each other favorably. But historically, things were darker. Their hostile relationship was bound by some historical events and irredentism, and one of them is 1453. Don't get it? It's the year the Byzantine Empire got lost to the Ottoman Empire and Constantinople, nowadays Istanbul, with it. Greece itself was ruled by the Ottomans for a long while until the early 19th century when they became independent, thanks to their War of Independence. Greece and the Ottoman Empire were involved in numerous wars as Greece tried to expand and reclaim the lands mainly populated by Greeks, including those in Anatolia, otherwise known as the Megali idea. Greece also claimed Constantinople, and they did reach as far as Smyrna or Izmir. But Turkey won the War of Independence, and Greece was kicked out from Anatolia. The population exchange between Turkey and Greece also put scars on the relationship. Things were calm until Cyprus came into the equation, where the Greeks there wanted Cyprus to join Greece. Turkey said no, and they invaded the north to secure the Turks living there. That, along with the Aegean Sea issue, will continue to hamper Greco-Turkish relations. Right now, they are not as hostile as compared to Armenia and Azerbaijan, and that is down to both of them being part of NATO. The relationship is still complicated, but they can also cooperate, especially with their people. Albania and Serbia are two countries that generally do not get along, but in reality, the relations are complex. The main point of contention is Kosovo. Although Albania does not officially claim Kosovo as theirs, some Albanians promote Greater Albania, which notably includes Kosovo and even parts of Serbia outside Kosovo. Serbia does not want that, and instead claims Kosovo as theirs. Albania has been generally supportive of an independent Kosovo, which does not please Serbia. However, war crimes committed in the Kosovo War and the war itself really soured relations between Serbs and Albanians. Of course, Albanians and Serbs can still get along as long as they don't enter the argument, but the relations are indeed difficult. Unlike Albania, Croatia and Serbia are a lot closer ethnically. The main difference is that most Croats are Catholic, while most Serbs are Eastern Orthodox. The relations were also complicated, and unlike Albania, both were part of the same country for decades. The main historical events which mark hostility between both countries or peoples were World War II and the Yugoslav Wars. During World War II, the independent state of Croatia, run by the fascist Ustaše, considered Serbs as national enemies, and during the Yugoslav Wars, Serbs living in Croatia fought a war against Croatia itself, which wanted to be independent from Yugoslavia. But today, relations have improved a bit, but those scars remain. I already made a video about this, and you can check it out. But to summarize, the point of contention is mainly in Transylvania, which some Hungarians claim as rightfully theirs. Transylvania, which belongs to Romania, was once a part of Hungary for many centuries. There is also a significant Hungarian minority in the region. The Treaty of Trianon is considered by many Hungarians as a national catastrophe, and they see Romania as having benefited from it. But today, relations between Hungary and Romania are generally not hostile, as both countries are part of the EU and NATO. They have cooperated a lot recently, but there were also points when Hungary and Romania were outright hostile to each other, and one of them is the War of 1918 to 1919. Moving on to South America, Bolivia and Chile also have a difficult relationship, and that is down to Bolivia losing their coastline to Chile during the War of the Pacific. I've also made a video about this, you can check it out, but anyways, they do have economic and tourist relations, but not so much when it comes to diplomatic relations. Bolivia still claims a corridor to the Pacific Ocean, and they've cherished that claim. Chile, on the other hand, insists that they've won it and they deserve the territory, even if Chile is already a lot longer. This one also needs no introduction. We all know that this is one of the most controversial conflicts around the world. It is also one of the world's most enduring conflicts and the one that deeply divides the world. To grossly oversimplify, it's a conflict between the Israeli state, which is, well, populated by Israelis and mostly Jews, and Palestinian people and the Palestinian state, mostly populated by Muslim Palestinians. I'm not going to dig deeper to this conflict. There are videos that can explain this way better than I will, but I can say that this is totally not a result of British meddling. Unlike the countries mentioned before, Argentina and the UK are pretty distant. So why were they hostile? Well, it's due to the dispute of the ownership of the Falkland Islands, also known as Las Malvinas in Argentina. Essentially, that island has changed hands several times, but the UK was able to rule it for centuries. Then some Argentinian dictator thought that seizing the island would be smooth and easy. He was wrong. Today, the islands are still in dispute and relations remain frosty, although it has improved somewhat. I may interchange England with the UK, but it's really between England and France. The relations are long, complex, and are characterized by conflict and alliances. But up until the end of the Napoleonic Wars, relations between England and later Britain and France were mostly hostile. Their biggest engagement was with the Hundred Years' War, where England attempted to subdue and dominate the French throne, but France won in the end. There were also major European conflicts where England and France took opposing sides. And when it comes to the English-Scottish conflict, France backed Scotland. After the Napoleonic Wars though, England, now the United Kingdom, has an either indifferent or sympathetic relationship with France, and they were fighting side by side in World War I. They were largely on the same page, but France and the UK still disagree a lot on certain issues, especially with regards to Brexit. I also used England here since other countries in the United Kingdom, most notably Scotland, have a very favorable ties, historical ties, with France. This rivalry is quite dangerous, and some even refer to this rivalry as the Middle Eastern Cold War. Why? Well, both Saudi Arabia and Iran are rivals for influence in the region, and they even engage in proxy conflicts in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and more. This rivalry is down to both Saudi Arabia and Iran being regional powers with different ideologies. Saudi Arabia is a predominantly Sunni country and a conservative absolute monarchy, while Iran is predominantly Shia and is ruled under an Islamic theocracy. It all started when Iran had an Islamic revolution which toppled their pro-Western monarchy. Before this, Iran and Saudi Arabia had a pretty okay relationship, both aligned to the US. After the revolution and consolidation of the Iranian theocratic government, Iran aims to spread this to its neighbors, while Saudi Arabia opposed this and vowed to protect their interests and allies and prevent Iran from crawling in its backyard. Some of the reasons why this conflict is dangerous are because this is the place where a chunk of the world's oil is produced. This already manifested with the conflict with Ukraine and Russia, and we're already seeing its effects. This is also dangerous and devastating because smaller nations are trapped in devastating conflicts. India and China are some of the largest nations in terms of population. India and China do cooperate and both are part of BRICS, but it's mainly economic relations. On the darker side, India and China had a dispute over their border, and their most hostile engagement was with the Sino-Indian War of 1962. India was also sympathetic to the Tibetans' plight, and China still claims Arunachal Pradesh as their own. Recently, there have been numerous skirmishes and border standoffs along their disputed border, and this could be a lot more dangerous if it escalated. India and China are also rivals for influence, as China is establishing closer ties with India's neighbors such as Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh through its Belt and Road Initiative. Historically, Denmark and Sweden had such a hostile relationship that they have fought each other for centuries and hold the record for most wars fought between them. They've had a long rivalry, although Denmark and Sweden were not able to fully conquer each other. The last major war between Sweden and Denmark was during the Napoleonic Wars, and afterward, both countries have kind of cooled down. Today, they get along pretty well, probably because they think war is just silly. Most Danes and Swedes get along, and of course, they poke fun at each other. Relationships between Germany and Russia are sometimes good, sometimes bad, and sometimes really terrible. However, I'm including this here since Germany and Russia had some of the most destructive conflicts in human history, and that is World War I and World War II. World War I involved Germany and Austria-Hungary against the Russian Empire on the Eastern Front, causing millions of casualties. World War II manifested the hatred of the ruling party in Germany to the Russians and Slavs in general, as tens of millions perished during the conflict. Today, the relationship is complicated, which involves Germany's internal population, oil exports, and security ties. They don't necessarily despise each other today, but they were to the highest level at some point in history. Now this one's a lot more complicated. Technically, China and Taiwan are one country. From Taipei's viewpoint, Taiwan is legally part of the Republic of China, and the entire mainland China is also legally part of the Republic of China. Now if we switch to Beijing's viewpoint, repeat the sentence but replace the Republic of China with the People's Republic of China. The difference between the ROC and the PRC is that the ROC is run by a democratic capitalist government, while the latter is ruled by a single party, the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party. This all happened because of the Chinese Civil War, where the PRC was not able to capture Taiwan and some islands off the coast of mainland China, where the ROC retreated to. Both governments certainly despise one another, and they want to be the single government that will lead all of China, including Taiwan. Now, this is not just about the governments. Many in Taiwan do not see mainland China and the People's Republic of China favorably and are generally not in favor of reunification. And many in mainland China view Taiwan as simply part of China under the CCP. Chinese and Taiwanese people can be friends on a personal level, but geopolitics does not care about personal relationships. Overall, these are the countries that have had a generally unfavorable relationship with each other. Some of these countries may have been historically hostile to each other, but not today, while some continue to despise each other even today. There are probably many more countries that despise each other, but this video is getting long. You can comment on additional ones instead if you have one. Thank you for watching and please subscribe for more country neighbors.